feeling. Nowadays, you got to have that because people nowadays.
Before we get straight into the podcast, I just want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Kirby GAA Star. Declan Kirby GAA Star Championship Journey. It's a series of GAA team children's books written by primary school teacher and GAA coach Michael Egan. You can check it out in the link in the description down below, of course, as well. Follow the trials and tribulations of Declan Kirby and his team at Smithgreen Gaelic Football Club, recently formed but promising GAA team. The book is now available in Easons and all good bookshops, so check it out in the description down below, and let's get straight into it. Welcome back to the GAA Fan TV podcast. I'm joined here today by John McMahon of the JMac Podcast to run through the All-Ireland Senior Football Final, discuss the game in bigger detail, look at all the talking points after the All-Ireland Final, and discuss it in bigger detail. So the final score was obviously Tyrone 2-15, or Tyrone 2-14, I should say. Mayo 15 points. Tyrone winning the game by 5 points in the end and winning their fourth All-Ireland Senior Football Championship in their history and their first in 13 years. John, what were your thoughts on the game? I mean, a huge win for Tyrone, very eventful game, certainly a lot to run through, and we'll certainly do so over the next hour. But I suppose ultimately, first of all, what were your thoughts on the game?
Good, Aaron. Thanks a million for having me on your show again. It's a pleasure. Look, I suppose we didn't really expect it all to happen really on Saturday. We really didn't think Tyrone early were going to get it as easy, and that's just the way it happened. I think they just played such a nice brand of football throughout, and it was a really, really good performance by Tyrone once again. They were the best team in this country by a country mile this year, Aaron. They were just fantastic, and I think I was reading lots of tweets and analysis about the game, but I just think the game seemed to swing for Tyrone when Padraig Hampsey kicked it outside the foot point. A couple of minutes into the first half, I really think the momentum just sided with Tyrone after that. I know Mayo had a few chances, but look, more heartbreak for the Mayo footballers. It's just, I don't even know. It's like, I know we'll be discussing later with Daniel Hussey on Untitled Sport about Joe Brollys' article. Maybe me and you could touch on it, but it just goes to show it's so hard to know even really to feel sympathy for Mayo in this particular game, Daniel, because it's like anything else. You get so many chances at something, it doesn't work off for you. And I think Mayo were just literally the masters of their own downfall in this particular game. Like, I know they were so close in recent years, but I just think on Saturday it was a very, very complete performance by the Red Hands, and Mayo just went off dwindling once again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you make a spot on point there actually about Padraig Hampsey's point with the outside of his right boot, because I think the score was 2-1 for Mayo at that point, and that actually drew the game level at that point, and Tyrone didn't look back from there. Mayo's only time they led in the game was obviously the first 2 points, and it was interesting because Mayo normally kind of when you look through their All-Ireland final history, it's normally the first half they're actually quite sloppy. They'll concede. You think of last year, they conceded that goal very early on after about 10 seconds from Dean Rock. You think of previous finals against Donegal. You obviously think of a lot of previous All-Ireland finals against the Dubs as well, but in this final, they actually started quite bright. They kicked the first 2 points, but it did seem that as soon as Tyrone settled into gear, that they were the ones that really took over, especially going down Mayo's left-hand side. Darren McCurry kicked a couple of points from there, and Padraig Hampsey, like you said before. And for Tyrone, once they gained control of this game, they were the top team really from there on after.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Aaron. I was saying it to my uncle. I was watching the game with him, and I was just saying, no better team when they get a lead and a grip on a game. I think obviously Dublin's game management is fantastic, and we've seen in recent years, but Tyrone are definitely up there game management and closing off a game, Aaron, and they really just showed that on Saturday night. They were just top class. From 1 to 15 and the subs even that were brought on, everyone put in another amazing shift. And I just think it's just this relentless attitude by a lot of these Tyrone lads. We're seeing so much applause for Conor Moyer, the likes of Niall Stud and Petey Hard. Lads just relentless, fantastic energy. Michael McCarron and Padraig Hampsey just had serious games once again. So it was a real team effort once again by this Tyrone team. And in fairness, I keep seeing quotes Tyrone with no kind of standout players, not like a Peter Canavan from years gone by, etc. But I think there's a lot of standout players in that Tyrone team that could really be obviously up for even player of the years. But look, a serious team performance once again. The momentum swung their way, as I said, after that Padraig Hampsey point. The captain of the team, no better man to step up. And just Mayo just went pretty much flat, I think, after Tyrone really kind of got a grip on the game. And it's their game management their passing ability is so good. They don't panic when they're on the ball. The forwards, the ball into the forward line is so good. It's so well measured. Like the ball in for like Cathal McShane's goal, it was crisp and right on the money. And look what McShane done back in the net with the fist. So much luck involved in that, of course, but that was straight off the training field, and it just paid so much dividends to Tyrone lads on Saturday. Just a really, really good performance. And like, even, you know, after the game, you're thinking, who's man of the match here? I know Declan McCurry did get man of the match, probably was my pick during the game, but there's so many more candidates, really. Like I was referencing, obviously there was lots of shouts for Niall Morgan, Michael McCarron, Padraig Hampsey, Petey Hart, Conor Moyer. So, you know, on All Ireland final, Aaron, to have about 6 or 7 nominees for a man of the match, it is that's a serious statistic by itself. Like, I know Mayo did have some decent enough performances. The likes of Lee Keegan stepped up, but what I found odd was Padraig Hampsey coming off in that was a very odd decision with James Horan along the line. I couldn't really understand that. Maybe he was fatigued, was he injured? I'm not too sure. A bit of clarification on that would be nice. But, you know, Tyrone, they're not going away, Aaron, and that was a serious performance Saturday night. And like, so many players playing. Like, even like Matty, like I'm looking at the program. Like, Matty Donnelly was fantastic once again, and yeah, really, Aaron, 1 to 15 lads, as the saying, came off the bench, top class.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, and like what you said there, so many options for you know, man of the match, and even for footballer of the year as well. Like, you could really go down a bit of a rabbit hole trying to choose which Tyrone player. You know, you could look at Darren McCurry, then you could go with Kieran McGeary. Padraig Hampsey probably deserves a shout. Conor Moyer is definitely in the conversation. Even Noah Morgan as well, to a certain extent, probably gets in that conversation. There's probably even 1 or 2 players that I'm not met, like Ronan McNamee as well. I thought had a very good game. Like, he got that block on Aidan O, kept him fairly quiet throughout the entirety of the game. And in general, like for Tyrone, like defensively as well, like when you think back to the league game, they conceded 6 goals against Kerry. Now, fair enough, that was a game in Killarney where obviously Tyrone had to travel the entire way down, and it was a game that essentially meant nothing because there was going to be no league final anyway. But the fact that they've turned it around and just improved so much from then, like, it is quite incredible, really.
I look at it is, and I suppose you learn more in defeat. And, you know, Tyrone are the perfect example of that game against Kerry in the league. They really showed up the defence, and they were just absolutely brilliant. They were so good, and like even I know Tyrone can come on the last couple of minutes as well, but even like the lads, it was just such a good defensive performance once again. And like, I know you're referencing Ronan McNamee there a couple of seconds ago. He had another very, very good game. There's just such a calm and presence about McNamee as well, because even when he's coming out with the ball, he wins ball inside. He just shores up the whole defence. He's so good at it. All his passing is just so pinpoint the whole time. And he's even in the reckoning for Player of the Year. I think definitely an all-star anyway. And it was just such a good performance. They could just be so proud of it. Conor Patrick's catch in the middle of the field for Darren McCurry's goal. Route 1 kick by Niall Morgan. Conor Patrick straight into the pause, up the field straight away. Like, I've seen someone saying today that a lot of teams around the country should really be adapting that, because it seems to be the way forward. Big long ball out to the big man in the middle of the field, get it going and have runs off his shoulder, pump the ball into full forward line, and away you go. So Route 1 does seem to be the best way to go for a lot of teams, and it's worked for Tyrone. But yeah, just a star-studded performance, Aaron. And it just goes to show in the statement we made earlier on, when you could bring on the likes of Dara Caniff and Cathal McShane, Hugh Pat McGeary, like Ronan O'Neill. He's a serious forward. He wasn't even looked at for Saturday. Like, imagine if maybe, I don't know, is he fit or not, or is he just not in contention? He's just another serious option to have for Tyrone as well. So littered with talent, Aaron, and these boys aren't going away too quickly.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like with Tyrone, I still think there's actually improvement in them. Like, when you really look at it, like Cathal McShane is obviously coming back from a long-term injury. You think back to 2019, he was a starter. He was one of their main players. Like, he was the player that you'd rely on. Now he's coming off the bench. Like, he's providing that you know, kind of game-changing attitude. I'm sure next year when he's fully fit and he's, you know, another year under his belt, he'll be, you know, trying to nail down a starting position. And like what you said there, like, you've got, you know, Ronan O'Neill in there, you've Paul Donaghy coming through the ranks. Lee Brennan can't seem to get a look in at the moment, and he's done very well at club level over the past couple of years. So, like, for Tyrone, there is still improvement in them, which is kind of crazy, because they've just won the All-Ireland. And to think Conor McKenna as well, who in the final missed a couple of chances that you'd normally see him score. And he's probably another player that could improve again next year if he can get back to the 2020 form that we've seen him in. So like there's still another level for Tyrone to get to. And even at that, as a Dublin fan myself, you know, it's kind of funny. We're all discussing Kerry and Kerry are coming and all the rest. I feel like Tyrone have just come under the radar and all of a sudden here they are. And they could be a team now that could really, you know, I'm not saying they're going to win the All-Ireland next year, but they could be a team that's going to be thereabouts, and they're going to be a tough proposition to beat now over the next couple of years.
100%. And like it suited Tyrone down to the absolute ground. I know, like, whatever happened for them a couple of weeks with the COVID case and everything, but if you think about it, you nailed it there. Like, all the talk about was just about Mayo, Dublin, and Kerry, and Tyrone have this just brilliant knack of just hiding in the shell and just working hard by themselves. And look, they're all Ireland champions, and no one gave them a chance this year. No one gave them a chance against Kerry. People obviously gave them a chance on Saturday, but they were still 50-50 on the fence. I think at the start of the year, Tyrone were 50-1 to win the All-Ireland. So that just goes to show they just came out of nowhere this year, can never really say. And it's obviously, like, as well as that, like, look, we're talking with Brian Dewar and Fergal Logan's first year on the job, and look what's after happened. All-Ireland champions, Ulster champions, serious stuff. Like, it's a serious story in itself. Like, and you know, like for Brian Dewar, like, to win it as a player, to win it now as a manager is just an incredible feat. Fergal Logan's been around the block a long time. He knows what it's like to win big games. So it's a serious achievement by like all of them. Like, and like, I suppose even when you look at Tyrones journey going into this game, or like on Saturday, the better selves, the bet Donegal, the bet Kerry. Like, a very stiff test against Donegal and Kerry, both games. So, you know, two are obviously the big contenders the last couple of years, and realistically, I know they only bet Kerry by a point, but they really probably did always look like winning that game. They bet a very favourite Donegal team, so that's serious preparation going into an All-Ireland final. You know, and unfortunately, you know, Mayo obviously bet Dublin in the semi-final, and like a lot of people have kind of been saying to me that was for like the final for them. Unfortunately, me and you said that like a few weeks ago, and unfortunately, I think that seemed to be Mayo's final big game. I just think they must have just too much preparation went into that game, and maybe not enough for this Tyrone game. But yeah, that's where it's at. And Tyrone are All-Ireland champions.
And I want to discuss about Conor Moyer in particular, because of what a player and what a performance he had. Like, I suppose it's not too, like, and that's one of the most interesting things about this Tyrone team is you've got, you know, Conor Moyer, who's playing in around the half forward line, playing at wing forward. But we were discussing, you know, before the game that he could end up playing a fullback because he's a player that can play all over the pitch. You've got Niall Sludden, who's playing at 12. And then, you know, he's getting a goal line clearance at one stage in the game in the first half. Like, they've so many players that could play in around the half forward line and then in around the fence as well. And I think that's something that really seems to be one of the main reasons why they've gone on and won this All-Ireland, is because they have such versatility and they're such a hard team to mark, like, especially for those Mayo lads, when you've got Niall Sludden, who's, you know, bursting forward, scoring points, you know, getting in around the full forward area at different stages, but then he's also making goal line clearances. Like, it's such a hard team to keep track of. And Conor Moyer and Niall Sludden in particular, I think they both deserve a lot of praise for that.
Oh, Aaron, 100%. And we were talking off air about that. They were just tremendous again on Saturday. And two lads that's definitely looking at all-stars for the year this year. Serious engines, Aaron. I really don't know. I think Conor Moyer's and Niall Sludden GPS stats must be through the absolute roof. You see them anywhere. They could be in the corner back position, wing forward, in the midfield area, full forward, as you were saying, making goal line clearances, absolutely everything, tracking back. Tremendous men to have on your team, Aaron. A nightmare to play against. I think we were saying during the week, Conor Moyer might have been picking up the likes of Ryan O'Donoghue. I think we were fairly spot on with that. And look at two boys that have serious engines. You know, Brian Dewar and Fergal Logan, an absolute serious shift this year, and it'll just keep getting better for them. Because look, I think Conor Moyer might be the early 20s, same as Niall Sludden. So many more years to give to the cause of Tyrone now. It's a serious project. Like, that's like I'm looking at the program from the last day, and like Tyrone McCann was listed to start. Obviously didn't list to start or play the last game, and like, it's a seriously strong team, Aaron. And they're seriously fit men, and it's a real credit to them. And I suppose when you look at it, like, a lot of these boys are finally starting to get to play a proper, nice brand of football. You know, Mickey Hart was obviously known for playing that kind of defensive football, kind of stink the place out. it kind of, as I said at the start, it took Brian Dewar and Fergal to come in, play this nice, expressive brand of football, kick passing into the full forward line, what we want to see. And Tyrone have the ball players to do this, and they just weren't nearly let the last couple of years. They were let this year, Aaron, and look what's after happening, All-Ireland champions. So it's just, it's the first time you've just been like, I know Dublin had serious success the last couple of years, but there's just something so impressive about this All-Ireland win by Tyrone, because it was a serious journey for them, and it's not going to be stopping anytime soon, Lovely Karen.
Yeah, like, and like what you said there with their kind of change in play, like I think one of the most impressive things for me really is the way they change their play. They can adapt. If they need to be defensive, they can. Like, they still have those defensive instincts still built into them. But like in the first half, they weren't playing a sweeper. You know, they were pressing up on Mayo. Like, they weren't allowing them time on the ball. They were conceding the kick out, but they were still pressing on Mayo's cornerbacks, be it Lee Keegan, Padraig Hampsey, one of those lads. And, you know, even then in the second half, they start kicking a lot more long as well. Like, you see Noel Morgan at the end of the first half catching a high ball, kicking it from his own square, and then creating a goal chance out of it. Darren McCurry forcing the save of Robert Henley. And then in the second half, they started floating a lot more long balls in there. Like, that's very impressive from a Tyrone point of view as well, because the ability to just change their style, just little kind of tweaks here and there. And then obviously for the final 10 to 15 minutes, crowding their own box, not allowing Mayo to have those goal chances. So it does seem like they've got that perfect combination of being attacking when they need to, but being defensive also. And I think that's been something that's been very good for the Dubs down the years, is they've found that combination. And this year they were probably too defensive, and that's what cost them. But Tyrone, they seem to have found that perfect mix between the two.
Yeah, 100%. Look, it's about mixing it in modern Gaelic football, and I think the days of just parking the bus and just, I think we've seen Roscommon in the Connacht final, they just parked the bus and they just didn't get over the line against Mayo, and them days are gone, Aaron. Like, I think it's a very impressive thing for a team to kind of be able to mix it, as you were saying, being able to attack when you need to attack, being able to defend when you need to defend. But getting the balance right, that it just doesn't look like you're just here to park the bus the whole time, and just, if you go a point or two up, you're just going to park the bus. Tyrone have found that mix, because the thing is, Aaron, they have ball players that have the ability to do this. And the best example I can use is Conor Moyer, a serious ball carrier. Niles Ludden, a serious ball carrier. Matty Donnelly, he was listed to start full forward. He was drifting in and around the half forward line, midfield area, got on ball, kicked a lovely score in the first half. Serious footballers, Aaron, at the end of the day. And like Conor McKenna, like another serious man that has a great engine as well. So it's just kind of, I know they got to an All-Ireland final in 2018, and obviously Dublin won. But it's nearly like we're just unhurting. Like, these are absolute top class players. But it's nearly like this year we're finally seeing the potential that all these gents had. And look, you know, as I keep saying, look what's happened. So it's great to see, Aaron. It's absolutely great to see, because, there's nothing worse when a player is maybe holding back because of tactics, or, oh, geez, I can't shoot it. I might get dropped, or I might get taken off. It's great to see players playing with a bit of confidence, expressing themselves, and it's a happy camp in Tyrone there at the minute. The players look like they're enjoying the football. Like, as I've said to you numerous times, we've seen Tyrone lads drop away from the panel in recent years. It looks like a very happy house there at the minute, Maron, and for the Red Hand County, long may it continue.
Yeah, like what you said there with the 2018 final, like, you had 9 players who started in that game, also started in the final. Well, actually 8 players, I suppose, not including Cathal McShane. So, like, they haven't changed that much really over the past couple of years. Like, fair enough, there's been a couple of changes here or there. Like, obviously Conor McKenna's come back in, and a few young lads like Dereck Canavan and Paul Donaghy have started to come into the team and come off the bench and whatnot. But, like, generally speaking, like, even in the All-Ireland final, like, you had Michael McKernan, Ronan McNamee, Padraig Hampsey, who all started. Colm Kavanagh was in there, fair enough. He's obviously retired, but you had the likes of Matty Donnelly, Noel Sludden, Kieran McGeary. So it does seem to be like things haven't changed that much for Tyrone over the past couple of years in terms of the players they're playing, but it just seems that they not only have changed their style, but even maybe a bit of belief as well, because you think back to last year, they obviously, finished the championship season winless. Okay, albeit because there was no backdoor. They lost to Donegal. But it does seem that this year they just had that bit more belief in themselves, even to come through Ulster and win that Ulster title, beating yourselves, obviously Cavan, the reigning champions, Donegal, and then Monaghan. Like those victories probably stood to them really well going in before that Kerry game as well, because you could see that kind of natural progression that they were improving really with every game that they played.
Exactly. And like, that's what I mean. Like the journey that they had, and I nearly forgot about Monaghan, just the final, a serious win. I know it was close, but again, serious preparation for the championship that they did have. So it's just, sometimes it's literally a case of saying to players, and I've seen championship winning teams and players have said about management teams, it's all about like realizing the potential that these gentlemen have, and look what's after happening. So it's nearly got to a case of nearly saying to Darren McCurry, he's an extremely good, confident player, and you've seen him after the game in the interview. Oh yeah, I stepped away from the panel, I think in 2018, and he was open and honest, and he says, oh yeah, I just had to find like the dazzler or whatever. So obviously lighten up the football pitch, and he's obviously worked so hard himself. He's in fantastic shape. He had a serious year. He got man of the match on Saturday course. So it's just putting the faith and belief into these players and just getting the rewards for it and just playing. I think I was talking to Kyle Coney there a few months ago, and he was saying to me with the new management team, with obviously Fergal and Brian, that there's going to be more expansive football. They'll be kicking it in. It'll just be more enjoyable football. And it just goes to show Tyrone were always good at that. Like I know we always reference the teams with the naughties, but like I know Mickey Hart back then, he was playing a lovely brand of football, but he had the ball players to do that. Like you had likes of Brian Wigan, Owen Mulkin, Stevie O'Neill, terrific ball players, like the likes of even Ryan McMenamin and Conor Gormley, to name a few. So that's, this team now, Aaron, they could really go on to do great things. They could do even better than the team with the naughties, because the players are there to do it. And they've realised potential this year, and they're reaping the rewards for it. So they're littered with talent there, and it's funny too. Like, and I know obviously like a lot of the country all like they were against Tyrone for the All Ireland final and bits and pieces like that. But there's so many good players there, Aaron. It's nearly good to see a strong Tyrone team, because it's nearly got to a stage where we're seeing so many players afraid to take risks in games and stick to the plan, stick to the code, all this kind of crack. But Tyrone have the players to make the GAA exciting again, Aaron, and long may it continue.
Yeah, and I think like we said, like a lot of people were against Tyrone, but I don't think it was anything really got to do with Tyrone or anything like that. I think it was more that a lot of people just wanted to see Mayo get over the line, because they've been such great servants for Gaelic football down the years. You'd feel like they finally should deserve their moment, and we'll get on to discuss Mayo in a brief moment. But like that decision as well on the 43rd minute, taking Matty Donnelly off for Cathal McShane. Going to be honest, at the time I was a little bit surprised by that, because I thought Matty Donnelly was having a good game, and I thought, you're bringing Cathal McShane on. Is it too early? Like, is he going to have, would he not be better maybe to bring on for the final 20 minutes? But Fergal Logan, Brian Dewar, hats off to them, like perfect decision, because it was literally only about 3-4 minutes later that they get that goal, like long ball in from Padraig Hampsey into Cathal McShane, and obviously hand passes it or fits it right beyond Robert Henley. So like, I mean, that was a big decision, like for the Tyrone senior football management, and one that really did pay off.
100%, Aaron, 100%. And like, that's what I mean. We said during the week, what's going to win this game for either team? Their bench. Bring on Cathal McShane, a serious, like a lad that probably was in near contention maybe to start the game. It's hard to know, as you were saying, taking off Matty Donnelly, maybe his wrist was ran at that stage. Maybe that's all he could give, or maybe they had that agreed before the game. Right, Matty, we're going to bring on Cathal. It's more than likely going to be for you. And I know maybe if that's said to him, who knows, but something on the lines of that to bring on the class of McShane. Look, it proved dividends, Aaron. He got a serious goal, and he done extremely well for himself, and it was at a key moment of the game. Goals win finals, goals are huge in finals, as I said during the week, and it was a ballsy move by Brian, but look, it paid off. And look, I think Matty Donnelly, he's been there, he's done that, and I think probably at the time he probably thought to himself, right, All Ireland finals, you basically need to be on it the whole game. Your input is just so essential minute by minute. So he probably thought at that point that the way the game was going, a bit of Cathal McShane magic was needed. And look what happened. It was a serious move by the Tyrone management team, as you were saying. It worked for them, and look, they're happy men this Monday, and it's serious up with Cathal McShane. And even referring to Cathal McShane, he turned down the contract in Australia, big money move. He came back to Tyrone. this is what he was waiting for. He's won his All Ireland. He got a goal against Kerry in the semi-final. You know, big moments, big player, and he's produced the goods for the Red Hands, Aaron.
Yeah, like, and I'm sure Cathal McShane probably often, maybe at different stages in his life and his day-to-day life, probably thinks, you know, did I make the right decision? You know, was it, you know, obviously the chance to go and play in Australia and obviously, you know, live abroad in a sunny country and all the rest, like something really where dreams are made of. He's probably thinking maybe from time to time, was that the right thing to do? But I think now, having won the All-Ireland with Tyrone, like, I'm surely he's thinking now, like, that was the right decision. Like, there's no looking back there. Like, I mean, incredible stuff, really. Like, and it's funny, like, there are too many. I don't even know if there's ever been a player to win an All-Star. Maybe there is, and for people watching, they can let me know down in the comments down below. Maybe you might even know yourself. Don't know if there's ever been a player to win an All-Star having not started a game in a senior football championship season. And Cathal McShane, like, he could win an All-Star. Like, I don't know, like, there might be a few other players that'll get in there ahead of him, but he's in contention. Like, he really is.
Yeah, look, and I suppose, as you were kind of saying, like, you probably want to be starting the games and probably get, you know, at the season of 2019, call it a serious year, got the All-Star. But I think you probably need to be playing the full games. I know he kind of came on, but as you said, he's in contention to maybe get that All-Star. But yeah, it's funny. Like, I was kind of thinking, you know, maybe he has his All Ireland now. He might tip over to Australia now. So he's probably happy now. Now a week or a month's time, Cathal McShane gets a contract offer from Adelaide or some of these big teams. But yeah, look, as you were saying, there had to be in a few days. Like, even March 2020, when he did get that serious injury, Cathal has to be asking himself, you know, did I make the right call here? It's a serious injury. He's still I know he came on against Kerry and obviously Mayo on Saturday, got the goals, but he still looked a bit rusty. It must have been a seriously bad injury that he did get. If he's still really feeling the effects of it on the body. So, look, at day to day, I say he had a few long nights training just by himself. You know, you kind of ask yourself a lot of questions when you're injured. Am I going to get back to me at the top level? Like, I could be over in Australia having the time of my life. But look, it's paid off for him. He's an All-Ireland champion. He's got both goals in two seriously big games. Croke Park. It's what dreams are made of, Aaron. Like, I know you were saying it's what dreams are made of. Sunny weather, everything goes with it. But look, we're talking about a fella that's played Gaelic football all his life, represented his club, represented his county. At all age levels, he scores the goal in an All-Ireland final to win it basically for Tyrone. You know, it's hard to replace that too, Aaron.
Yeah, like, and it's probably something similar for Conor McKenna as well, who was a huge star over in Australia playing AFL. Like, I've seen a lot of the different clips, and I actually often get people commenting down on YouTube videos saying that they're from Australia and they don't follow anyone in Gaelic football, but they're just watching to know how Conor McKenna's doing and to think, could he ever actually return to AFL? And you know, again, that's another kind of situation for him as well, where he leaves Australia, leaves that behind, comes back to Tyrone, wins the All-Ireland. And like what you said with Cathal McShane's injury as well, like, it is kind of a incredible story, really, like, coming back from that. And like, he mightn't be the same player ever again. Like, he might have to reinvent his game. You know, who knows what's going to happen with him next year. But I suppose for them two players, and I suppose for everyone in Tyrone, like, at least it's meant something. Like, there's been something at the end of the road, and it's something that will definitely live with them for the rest of their life.
Yeah, 100%, Aaron, 100%. And look, it just goes to show what a bit of hard work, determination, and working by yourself can do. And I think a lot of them Tyrone players, I'm a big fan of Niall Morgan, and like, he's had some seriously good interviews after the All-Ireland final. He did a great piece with Artie after the game. He's very good enough the ball this morning. Darren McCurry after the game, I think Saturday, he was paying tribute to his late mum. Like, he's doing it for her. He worked by himself. He's got himself into serious nick. Conor McKenna working by himself to get back to as you were saying, maybe the player he was before he went to Australia. He had a good game against Kerry, another good game Saturday night, and like, obviously Niall Morgan, like a perfect example of like a lot of naysayers, doubting his performance. You know, probably like public enemy number one in his own team. He's an All-Ireland champion. He had an absolutely incredible game against Mayo on Saturday. He was very good against Kerry as well. So they proved a lot of people wrong, Aaron, and proved probably ourselves wrong throughout the year as well. And they're full credit for the victory, because they were just like, they're nearly like a prime example. If you work hard at something, the results will flow. And I think it seems to be with a lot of these lads in Tyrone, probably strike me. Like, I think Cathal McShane, the Darren Curry's, these words, Niall Morgan, Conor McKenna, like a lot of these boys seem to do a lot of work by themselves. It's probably a bag of balls down to the field, kick points, get your gym work done. A lot of them Tyrone boys are an absolutely serious mix. So it's a real credit to them, Aaron. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and like we could go on and on about the entirety of the Tyrone side. Like, we haven't even touched on Peter Hart or Michael McKernan and the influence that some of those lads have had. Like, and I mean, all across the board, the bench as well, Dereck Canavan coming through, and like looking through those young players that are coming through, like Dereck Canavan, like we were saying before, and Paul Donaghy, and the fact that they're minors there, won the All-Ireland. So, okay, it'll be a few more years before they come through, but like they are building. There is a lot of players coming through there, and you know, you like what we were saying, you know, like I'm not going to say they're going to do anything like win 3 or 4 All-Irelands in a row or anything like that. Still a bit to go to do something like that, but definitely winning another All-Ireland. And like what one of my commenters on one of the YouTube videos said the other day, big incentive for Tyrone next year. Never won back-to-back All-Irelands, and all of a sudden it becomes an interesting topic because you have that Tyrone team in the 90s that won 3 All-Irelands, and I think a lot of people would still have that team better than this Tyrone team given they won 3 All-Irelands. But if this Tyrone team goes on and wins back-to-back All-Irelands, all of a sudden then you're having a debate as to which team is better. And I mean, that's a very like fascinating topic, I think.
No, 100%, it definitely is. And I suppose, look, I think different teams, different players, you know, different management styles. But look, I think the team with the noughties, you had the likes of, you know, you probably look at, like, let's be honest with this. Yeah, the team with the noughties, you had the likes of Owen Mulligan, Stevie O'Neill, Peter Canavan. Players like that, Aaron, who probably are the best forwards we'll ever see to play this game. Yeah, Tyrone's full forward line of Darren McCurry, Matty Donnelly, Conor McKenna. As you were saying, they have a long way to go before they achieve greatness. Obviously, that's a huge, huge step on Saturday. But again, look, and people's, like, you know, sport's a funny thing. People's already looking for the year ahead. I think Tyrone's probably living in the moment. I'm probably enjoying Saturday, and it's a serious, serious achievement. But look, I think the sky really is the limit for these players. And like, it's a funny thing as well, like, you know, not a team of individuals and all that kind of stuff, but I really do think there is, I wouldn't say individuals, but there is stars in this Tyrone team. So I think for a lot of people to be saying that, you know, there's not like a star on this Tyrone team, like when you look at it, like there is really, like Niall Morgan is a star, Peter Hart is a star, Darren McCurry is a star, like Marty, they do have so many stars. So like for a lot of people to be saying, and okay, maybe not individuals, but there is a lot of stars, there's a lot of top class players on that team. So look, as you were saying, can they emulate like the success of the noughties? It's so hard to know, because when you look at it, okay, we'll get on to next year in a couple of months' time maybe, but look, Dublin will be coming back. Kerry again will have a serious point to prove again. I'm not too sure about Mayo, because we could be looking at maybe a few retirements, maybe James Horan leaving the fold, so be a lot of transition in Mayo. So teams are going to keep getting stronger. So even like, it's funny, like I said, we made earlier on, Ulster will be very tough next year, because obviously you have Armagh, you have Derry, you have Monaghan, all rising once again. So like, I know people are jumping the gun straight away, but they'd have to come through a very strong Ulster province next year, so that'll be interesting. But look, I really do think the sky is the limit for this Tyrone team, because when you do look at it, Aaron, the oldest men on the team, Niall Morgan, Peter Hart, 30 years of age. Peter Hart's as fit as a fiddle. That man could do another 3 or 4 years. Niall Morgan similar, so they're in very, very good stead, Aaron.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a very interesting one now to keep an eye on them now over the next couple of years. We'll move on to Mayo anyways, obviously getting beaten in the final like we were saying before, and I know the Mayo fans can often, you know, come after us in the comments down below, and they were certainly after me there in the build up to the final, so we'll be careful what we say here. But like 11 finals since 1951, obviously, well 11 finals lost. There's about 12 finals in total. You obviously have the one replay 2016. I mean, there isn't really a story like it in sports. I don't think. Like, I think maybe Liverpool and soccer, and the Boston Red Sox and baseball are probably the only two really that can come close. And even at that, they probably don't really come close to the level of heartbreak that Mayo have had. Like there was all this belief from their fans and everything going into this final that this was finally going to be the year. This was going to be the one. We beat the Dubs. They come in against Tyrone, and like in the first half, they done a couple of good things right, but the second half was just so flat, so disappointing. We were talking about it a bit off camera. James Horan's in-game decisions, in my opinion, were very questionable. Padraig O'Hara, he takes him off like early in the second half. You're wondering why he done that. James Carr, I thought he brought him on too late. Aidan O, fair enough, like second senior football appearance, obviously impressing a lot of young lads at training, but is he really going to do anything in 5 minutes and an extra time? Like, I'm not sure, but what's your perspective on it?
Yeah, Aaron, look, it's just, it's hard to know, and I know we were saying off air about like heartbreak and bad luck stories and all this kind of crack. And I know Joe Brollys, like we'll probably discuss in a few minutes, he's been very strong in his views with the Mayo team. But look, we could say this, that, and the other, and the curse and blah, 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 blah. We have to be realistic with these things, Aaron. Simply not good enough. And I think that's so blatantly obvious to be seen. Tyrone with a better footballing team. They took their chances when they got them. Mayo didn't. Like, Mayo had two very good goal chances. Obviously, Ryan O'Donoghue scuffed the penalty. He just stopped on his way up on the run to the penalty as well. So it just, look, Aaron, how many chances do you want at something? Like, let's not beat around the bush here. Saturday was Mayo's best chance of winning All-Ireland. I just think, as we were saying off air, that game against Dublin seemed like it was the final. A couple of weeks later on, it does turn out like it was like the final, really, that Dublin game. I think they probably got overhyped after that. I think the fans just probably lost the run of themselves, and it just flattered to deceive again on Saturday. And look, I think the man you would feel sorry for is James Horan, because he can only send out his 15. They really did let him down. I know Lee Keegan showed a bit of fight throughout the game, Paddy Durkin, but that's all we've really seen. And I know we keep referencing him, Aidan O again, just another mismatch again for him. I don't know what it is about All-Ireland finals with Aidan O, still yet to get off the mark in one. Tommy Conroy missed a good goal chance as well. It's a hard thing to analyse, Aaron, because, you don't really know where to kind of start and finish with Mayo at the best of times. And I just think that, we can keep saying these hard luck stories and sure, until that man dies that was on the 51 team and blah, blah, blah. Not good enough, Aaron. I think that's the bottom line with this Mayo performance on Saturday. And you stay back to the drawing board and be there again next year, you can nearly guarantee you can nearly put your bottom dollar on it that they'll nearly make similar mistakes if they got to like the final next year, just kicking balls short, kicking wides. And I just think, as want for a better phrase, the arse nearly fell out of Mayo's performance after Ryan O'Donoghue missing that penalty. Just what more can you say, Aaron? Like, it's just so hard to really kind of jump on this kind of bandwagon. And just, to be honest, it's probably, and I know a lot of people in recent years, Jesus, like, I feel sorry for Mayo after that loss, our final against Dublin numerous years. But I just think the general consensus after Saturday's final is not good enough, Aaron, and that's being brutally honest with you.
Yeah, and I think Ryan O'Donoghue was impressive from a Mayo point of view. I thought he had a good first half, and in the second half, he looked lively. He was trying to get on the ball, was trying to make things happen. But other than that, there was a lot of very poor performances, like a lot of passengers, really. And they just, like what you said, Ryan O'Donoghue misses that penalty. But even at that, like, they were still in the game. Like, Robert Henley scored a 45 not long after that. There was a point in it. But it did just seem that as soon as Cathal McShane got that goal as well, like, there did seem to be a massive lack of belief. They were still creating the odd chance here or there. Kevin McLaughlin got a point, and they were still in contention. But you were just waiting for something different to happen. Like, maybe they should have pushed Lee Keegan further up the pitch or something. Just try something a bit different, because clearly it just wasn't quite working. And you would wonder, has James Horan been too loyal to players like Aidan O, for example, who, like, there was stages in the game where he was catching high balls. He was getting in front of Tyrone lads. He was creating problems, like, in the first half, different stages in the second half. But it would seem like he'd catch the ball, he'd play a pass. Like, Mayo needed more than that in that game. Like, they needed someone to score a couple of points, to bring a bit of belief. And I'm not saying that the players in the Mayo's bench would have done so, but clearly, like, with the Aidan O situation, and, like, obviously I don't agree with a lot of the very hurtful criticism he's probably getting on social media. Like, a lot of people being very personal, and Joe Brollys, which we'll get onto in a moment. Like, they are amateur athletes at the end of the day, but, like, you would have to wonder at the same time, does he get in the starting 15 next year? Like, it's is he the captain next year? I'm not sure. Like,
well, okay, I suppose that's something we always need to remember. They are amateur athletes and they're not getting paid for this, Aaron. But at the end of the day, it is an All-Ireland final, and, like, you want your best players, like, allegedly your best players stepping up, and unfortunately it just didn't happen for Aidan O again on Saturday. And, like, I think he was just, for him to go out and kind of do that, and in a game where you just need to have so much drive, and you just need to just go at the team you're playing so much more. And I just think that, you know, if your main man, well, apparently your main man, Aidan O is not stepping up again. It's so hard to know, because he drive your team on. Like he needs to kind of lead and inspire the team, and unfortunately, it just did not happen. And it's just a positional thing with him. Like, do you need to play him in full forward, half forward? In fairness, he was listed to start centre half forward for me like on Saturday, and it just didn't happen for him. So, as you were saying, like, do you start him next year? What role will he have going forward? As you were saying, is that kind of, you know, a bit of commitment from Horan to kind of keep playing him in the various games? Is it just a bit of favouritism from James Horan? It's hard to know. Will James Horan need to be managing Mayo next year? That's another question that'll need to be answered this week or next week. But yeah, look, a very probably lethargic performance by him once again. And like, it's all well and good, and I've said this numerous times, doing it against the likes of Sligo and Leitrim and this, that, and the other. If you're an all-star footballer, if you're a player that if there's so much talk about you as a player, these are the games you need to be stepping up in. He didn't step up once again. He didn't step up against Dublin. And that's the bottom line, Aaron. Like, and I know, as I was saying there, like, obviously Paddy Dereck and Lee Keegan were showing a bit of fight at the end and driving the issue. But that's, at the end of the day, you're a full-back and you're half-back. Like, you have to so much more from the forwards up front. And like, I know Tommy Conroy and Ryan O'Donoghue were trying, but I just think when Mayo went down by 6 or 7 points, that's when a bit of urgency was being shown for Mayo. Too little, too late, unfortunately, Aaron, and they'll just be licking their wounds once again. Like, I know, obviously, we've seen Ciaran O'Connor after the game consoling Ryan O'Donoghue. He would have been a serious addition probably on Saturday, and I think someone was saying like his loss was really felt on Saturday. But look, he wasn't about, and Mayo just didn't step up, and that is the bottom line. And I know, obviously, Aidan O'Shea has come in for a lot of criticism, like, for that performance, and I know a lot of people saying probably a lot of unnecessary stuff online. But one thing you really would need to say, Aaron, if you are the player you are supposed to be, you have to be stepping up. You have to be stepping up in these games. Like, and I know we've touched on the Tyrone already as it is, but like, we talk so much about the likes of Peter Hart, Darren McCurry, Matty Donnelly, Conor Moyer, and like, we can criticise them, we can give them constructive comments and all this kind of stuff. But, you know, we can't criticise them if they do have a bad game. Grand scheme of things, they normally have good games. They stepped up on Saturday. Like, they're Tyrone's main players. Aidan O'Shea is led to believe Mayo's one of Mayo's best players. And one thing I find staggering as well, I don't really want to keep having a pop at O'Shea, but I was just looking at the odds there on Saturday before the game, and Aidan O'Shea was the favourite to get man of the match. Like, I don't know who's over the GAA and things, the Boyle Sports. It just seems absolutely bananas. But like, and it just, I think Darren McCurry was 16-1 shout to get man of the match, and look what happened, got man of the match. So I don't know how Aidan O'Shea was the favourite to get man of the match, because the way he performed on Saturday was just simply not good enough. And I don't know, there's just a lot of head scratching for James Horan to do in the next week or two, because look, he got to the final last year, he got to the final this year, no joy in either occasions. And I don't know, I think we could be looking at the end of Mr. Horan in a couple of weeks' time, Aaron, to be honest.
Yeah, and like what you said there, it's an interesting one, the fact that Mayo came in bookies' favourites in most people's eyes. Like, a lot of pundits were going for Mayo. Like, I know obviously me and yourself tipped Tyrone, and obviously the lads over on Tackling Sport tipped Tyrone as well. But it did seem like just so much hype about Mayo going into this, and so many people discussing Mayo. But like, when you really look through their overall year, like compared with Tyrone, for example, like Mayo came through Division 2, never really had a significant challenge there.
Yeah.
Clare put it up to them. But even at that, like, with all due respect, Clare are nowhere near the level of Tyrone. Obviously, they come through Connacht, Sligo and Leitrim, you know, probably with all due respect, the two weakest counties in Ireland at Gaelic football anyways. They play Galway. They're very poor in the first half. They do turn it around in the second half, but Galway were quite poor in that second half as well. Like, they didn't score, you know, up until the final quarter. Against the Dubs, very poor again in the first half. In the second half, again, they weren't great really up until about 60 minutes. Yeah. You know, up until about 60 minutes, and then extra time. So like, when you really factor it in, like, Mayo have probably overachieved really in getting to this final, which sounds quite bizarre, like, considering they're always getting to finals, but they probably shouldn't have realistically got to the final. I'm not trying to take away, you know, a better team against Dublin. Like, Dublin were absolutely dreadful, like, no doubt about it. Mayo were the better team, but like, when you really look at it, Galway could have beaten them and Dublin could have beaten them, you know, along the way. So they, like, in some ways, they probably overachieved in getting to the All-Ireland final, which does make the fact that they were favourites compared to the Tyrone, who, playing in Division 1, coming through Ulster, Cavan, Donegal, Monaghan, and then Kerry. Like, it is quite baffling, really.
Oh, of course it is. Like, and I suppose that's the main. Like, Tyrone were full credit to getting the All-Ireland final and getting the win on Saturday, because they had the tougher journey. And when you compare it, as you were saying there, about Mayo's journey to the final, it just wasn't near the quality of teams that Tyrone faced throughout their campaign. So that's probably maybe what paid dividends for Tyrone even winning on Saturday, having their tough tests against all them teams. So Mayo's just preparation going into the final. I know that was a stern test against Dublin, but realistically, they didn't really get going until the 60th minute of that game. So it just seems to be they need to be a good couple of points behind to start playing, and that's just not a good enough sign of the team. As you were saying, that the poor first half against Dublin, and it's nearly until the gun was put to their head, that's when Mayo started playing. And you can't do that in All Ireland. You can't do that in senior county football, Ireland. You need two good halves of football, and Mayo just couldn't do that. I know, but they're a bizarre team to a certain extent, Aaron, because like, even when I think it was Darren McCurry got that second goal for Tyrone, Mayo then just started to rally. But you're talking 5 or 6 minutes left of the game, Aaron. Like, Lee Keegan kicked that outrageous score, fair enough. But then why did they just leave it so late to start playing? It just does not make any sense. Like, I know obviously Ryan O'Donoghue missed that penalty, and it would have been great from Mayo point of view to get that goal and push on. They missed it, but still didn't really look about trying to claw their way back into the game. So it just seems to be a mentality problem. They drop their heads, players just lose confidence, and yeah, like it just goes. It's a funny team at the very best times. And I suppose maybe, as you were saying, maybe probably overachieving. But I suppose when you look at the teams, I suppose Tyrone definitely face the stronger teams, and just that's look at, unfortunately, Aaron, that's Mayo is going to be pat probably to the final if they do get to the finals in the next couple of years. That's what it'll be similar pat, because Connacht's fairly weak, and then you're probably looking maybe at a stiff enough test in like the quarters of the semi. So that'll be happening Mayo now for the next couple of years. If they do try to reach the promised land, of course. But just I don't know. It bogger belief, and I just a Mayo fan now. It just unfortunately more head scratching, and just a very poor showing on Saturday. And I think you just wouldn't be overly pleased with it. And as well, look, if you're a Mayo supporter, you pay your hard-earned money to go to these games. You follow them basically all your life, and on Saturday, unfortunately, they just didn't go over the line once again.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. Like, I was over in London at the weekend, and I suppose anywhere you go in the world, you'll always run into a Mayo fan. And funnily enough, I ran into a Mayo fan in one of the pubs over there, and I was talking to him about James Horan, and you were mentioning him there, and straight away he was like, "No, like James Horan needs to go. Like, he's been there. Fair enough. He's done a lot of good things for Mayo. Like, he's brought through a lot of young players. He's won a league. He won a couple of Connacht titles. Got Mayo back on the right path, but he was very quick to say, like, it's a rootless game in many ways, and he needs to be moved on. Someone else with fresh ideas needs to come in. And like, at the time, I was kind of like, I was like, that's a bit harsh, like, because I think I personally think he's done a great job. Like, in all, with all due respect, like, you think back to his first spell, getting Mayo in 2011, like beating Cork, and then getting them to those All-Ireland finals, like bringing through those young players. But at the same time, he hasn't got them over the line. Like, he's done this, Stephen Rochford was probably got them as closest as anyone. And I suppose the other question is, if James Horan does go, who else comes in? I know a lot of people are saying Jim McGuinness. Personally, I just don't see that happening. I just don't think Jim McGuinness would take any job in Gaelic football at the moment, to be perfectly honest. Maybe a club job, but I just don't see him managing at inter-county level. Kevin McStay has said before, he's not going to put himself in contention. So, you're kind of going around and thinking, who else is there really?
Well, I suppose one candidate you could probably think of is Liam McHale. Like, I see him doing a lot of kind of punditry work on the Mayo setup at the minute. But I suppose, look, in fairness, Liam McHale, like, I suppose if we are to kind of go into the kind of management end of things at Mayo, like, McHale was part of Kevin McStay's Roscommon Connacht winning team in 2017, and he looked like he was doing great work with them. I think he was involved with Cab setup years ago as well. So McHale, in fairness, he's a serious passion for Mayo football. He could potentially get them back to the promised land if he would get a chance at it. But I do think it probably is time for change once again. And I know obviously you mentioned Stephen Rochford. He did get them very close, but just not close enough, unfortunately. And I suppose James Horan, like that's as I was saying a couple of minutes ago, you probably would feel sorry for him because he can only send out his 15. But I suppose is it just that loyalty to these certain players? And I know we keep referencing the likes of Aidan O, various players like that, but is it just that bit of loyalty towards them to think that, okay, if I was to drop Aidan, God knows what he could have done, or he played the full game, he didn't do the job for me. So that's probably the wins James Horan has to lick, unfortunately. But yeah, game management's huge, and I think Brian Deere and Fergal definitely won that on Saturday. But yeah, I think it probably look at, let's be realistic, it probably is time for change in Mayo once again, but it's hard to know who would come in and replace them. But I know maybe an outside chance, maybe Liam McKill might be thereabouts. I know Kieran McDonald was part of James Horan's backroom team as well. Would he put his face forward for it? It's hard to know. But look, it's going to be definitely an interesting couple of weeks for James Horan to see what he does next. As you were saying, maybe Jim McGuinness there to step in. I don't know. It seems to be with him. If he was to take over an inter-county team at the minute, has the ship sailed for that? Is he more interested in soccer? And I think the soccer has maybe gone overly well for him, so it's hard to know. So, yeah, it's an interesting couple of weeks now for Mayo GAA because it's going to be a crucial few weeks. You're looking at the team there. Lee Keegan maybe call it a day. Is he close to it? Aidan O'Shea might have a few things to think about. Kevin McLaughlin's 33, so look, I keep saying to you at the GAA clock, it runs very quick. There's a lot of probably soul searching to be done in Mayo football once again, Aaron, and it's going to be a long winter.
Yeah, and I suppose you did have the manager who won the Knockmore county title there. He could be in contention, like they won a county title for the first time in 23 years. Now, forgive me, I can't remember his name, but I'm sure maybe he'd get in the hat or kind of get in the question. And like what we were saying there with James Horan, like personally, I think he deserves another year, in my opinion. Like I think he, when you look through his second spell in particular, won a league, won 2 Connacht titles in a time period where Galway were starting to beat them. He broke that voodoo. He got a couple of wins over Galway. He's obviously beaten the Dublin, voodoo. He's beaten them. Albeit, all right, fair enough. Like what we said, Dublin were really poor. So I think he does earn another year. What you would say is, will anything really change? And that's the tough one for Mayo, because like I don't think they should change too much about their team, because I don't think they're a million miles away. But at the same time, it's very hard to see how they win in All Ireland. Like you could easily picture me and you here this time next year talking about them losing in a final against Kerry,
exactly,
or the Dubs,
yeah.
And that's kind of the thing. But then but on the flip side of that, you could James Horan could leave, you could bring someone else in, and then maybe they actually go backwards and get beaten in a quarter final or something like when they got beat by Kildare that time in 2018. So you never really know, like with Mayo, like as Joe Brollys once said, Mayo are a lottery ticket, and like you really just don't know with them.
Well, that's exactly it, Aaron. Like, and you're probably talking about like fulfilling their potential in like two halves of football, and just even they can't really reach them levels, and it just seems to be it's a very tough job. We obviously see Mayo fans, they can get very demanding, and they kind of probably, as I said, they kind of did nearly lose the room themselves after that Dublin performance, that Dublin victory, and it just did seem to be the hype kind of got the better of them, and that's obviously what has happened. And it's definitely a tough job. And I suppose obviously going into this year as well, Mayo did have a lot of retirements, and to get them back to an All-Ireland final after all the retirements Mayo had this year probably was an achievement in itself. Fair play to James Horan on securing that, but you're probably looking at another couple of retirements, as I was referencing Colin Boyle. I'm presuming he'll probably hang up the boots now, and Kevin McLaughlin will be looking at himself. Maybe Lee Keegan might do another year. It's hard to know. So they're pivotal players. They've been great service to Mayo football. So you're probably looking at another another sport of young lads coming in and maybe fighting for the cause of Mayo. But it's probably just another rethinking job needed in Mayo football, Aaron, and it's probably just a fresh face. I know James Horan's got them to finals in the last couple of years. Got the final last year, and this year hasn't got over the line. So it probably is time for a fresh face. But that fresh face is going to be very important now, because obviously, as you were saying, there's no point getting them to a quarter final and maybe getting best with the new management. So the fresh face, if he does come in, if James Horan does step down from the Mayo manager position this week, it'll be very interesting to see who does come in, because it looks like another rebuilding job will have to happen. It looks like, do I keep with Aidan O'Shea next year? Do I give him a bit of time at the bench? it's hard to know. So look, it's going to be a long winter. There's going to be a lot of questions need to be asked of Mayo football once again, and I just wouldn't like to be spearheading it, Aaron, because you'd be getting a lot of stick.
I suppose Joe Brollys' comments, like I don't want to touch too much on them. I made a video yesterday kind of discussing that in more detail. But like in terms of his comments, obviously he was talking about Mayo being time wasters and all the rest. And like it is kind of mad, really, like all the sort of criticism that does kind of get labelled at some of the Mayo players and all the rest sometimes. Like, fair enough, Joe probably makes a few good points about some of the James Horan's in-game decisions and whatnot, like, and all the rest, but it's just maybe his choice of words, like saying that, you know, Aidan O starting was a political consideration. Like, I just don't really understand what he means by that, and honestly, I'd love to kind of ask him, like, and explain that in further detail. But like, what's your kind of take on all that? Like, because for Mayo in particular, like, they do seem to be like, there's always like heavy criticism, but at the same time, the way I look at it as a Dublin fan myself, we get it all the time, even when we're winning, you know. So it's one of them things where, you know, maybe to be fair, like considering how poorly they were beaten this final, maybe it's you know, it's somewhat warranted. Fair enough, all the personal abuse and all that, like obviously that's completely unwarranted. But in terms of like, you know, being critical of this Mayo side, like maybe it is somewhat fair.
Yeah, to a certain extent, but I suppose the big thing is, Aaron, what Joe Brolly has achieved from all this. Me and you talking about it right now. So that's his whole point nearly behind it. Like, and look at, you know, I know he's a contract there with the Independent, and look, I think Joe Brolly, judging by a lot of his tweets, he seems to be, you know, directing him a lot with RTE. There seems to be a lot of sour grapes, obviously, with RTE dropping him and various bits and pieces like that. He's still very sour about it, and that's blatantly obvious to be seen. So look, the Independent, they've obviously given him a platform to write whatever he likes. Ink does, you know, paper doesn't refuse ink, Aaron, as we well know. You know, Joe's just probably gone off one again. And I suppose, obviously, look, the criticism that he has, you know, put towards the Mayo footballers, and I know it's this big headline and everyone's going to click into the Twitter link, everyone's going to click into the article and see what he says. And look, at the fact he has me and you talking about it probably does sum up what the man wanted to achieve from it. He wanted to get people talking, he's got people talking, he wanted to make headlines, and he's got it. He's got it once again because he has the following for it. People disagree with him, people agree with him. Personally, I don't really mind Brollys as a pundit because he did kind of say the stuff that was warranted for a lot of people in teams in times gone by. I think he's maybe gone off track for this article to a certain extent. I think what he's maybe said is a tad bit harsh on the Mayo footballers, obviously, because, you know, they did obviously get to another All-Ireland final, but you can, as you were saying, maybe agree to a certain extent in terms of, you know, feeling sorry for them and hard luck stories and all this bits and pieces. You know, if you're not good enough or if you don't get over the line in something that you've got numerous times, Aaron, you're going to take stick. You're going to get criticism. And as you were saying, the Dublin footballers obviously got a lot of criticism over the years for doing various bits and pieces, obviously the dope and the money, etc. But Dublin, obviously, on another level for all them years. But look at, you know, Joe, he's attracted the attention. He's got it. I obviously no media work for him throughout the championship. That would have been very bitter for him. As I said, the Independent, to give him a platform, he's standing up tall on it, Aaron, and you know, he's laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah, absolutely, he probably is. Like, and some of the tweets he comes out with, like, I will say he is great entertainment, and he is quite a funny character, especially when he comes out with his competition polls and all the rest and all this kind of stuff, and he's got no Northerners written at the bottom of it again, just to kind of rub salt in RTE there, like. And yeah, like what you said, like, I do think Joe Brolly is a very good pundit, and I think, like, even when you see him on Air Sport and he's talking about the game, like, he does give some really good points. I think just that sometimes, for whatever reason, he loves saying things controversial. Like, I even seen an interview with him on a podcast before where they were asking him about the David Goff comments, and he was saying that the reason why he said that was just to, you know, get under the skin of Mayo fans and really just try rile people up, Dublin fans as well. Let's try rile people up and all the rest. And you're thinking, like, fair enough, okay, like, but, like, you know, you want to see some analysis, you want to see some proper punditry. That's obviously why people watch the game and watch the halftime analysis. So I think when you're saying that just to kind of wind people up, like, I don't know, like, personally, I just think it's just too far, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, when you're trying to wind people up like that, and that's probably what he's always trying to achieve, and it is all kind of clickbait stuff. And I suppose when he's aiming that kind of criticism towards the Mayo footballers and the Mayo supporters and everything that went with it, he knows when he's casting that rod, he's obviously going to get a few baits, and look what he's done. You see, obviously he has me and you talking about, obviously I'm Cavan, you're Dublin, obviously, so he hasn't gone at us yet, but you know, you're just kind of thinking he's hit a nerve of the Mayo fans, and we see so many of them on social media. They're absolutely mad fans, obviously big fans of your channel, so there's so many views that come from them. So that's what I mean. They're all over the place, Mayo fans, and obviously, you know, by Joe kind of saying that in the Independent, he's obviously going to get a serious reaction because it's in relation to the Mayo team. There's some absolutely avid followers of the team, so obviously people's going to click into that and get annoyed. So look, he's an interesting man, Joe Brollys. Look, you know, he's obviously given away one of his organs, and he's obviously very a thoughtful person, and everything that goes with that. He's, you know, he has a completely different perspective on a lot of things. He's a deep thinker, obviously, and he's obviously got a huge reaction to his latest article now, and it'll go down now for the next couple of days. It'll create a lot of discussion. But I suppose regarding punditry, when you do look at it, you're looking at like maybe Tommaso Shea, Oisin McConville really leading the line these days. I suppose after that, you don't have a lot of kind of, I know we've seen Pat Spillane going off his head, you know, against Tyrone that time. And, you know, a lot of people just didn't enjoy that punditry because he just looked absolutely mad. I know, like, it just wasn't nearly enjoyable to watch. You nearly felt uncomfortable watching it. I don't know about you, Aaron. And, you know, you just have so many yes men when it comes to punditry these days. Lads just, you know, doing it just to pay the few pound or get the few pound for it and just kind of move on with it, not anything controversial. So I suppose definitely for the championship this year, you probably would have missed Joe's when we take on various bits and pieces. It would have been even great to see Joe's views on the Dublin Mayo game that time, even the All-Ireland final there as well. His analysis definitely, I think, were missed for the championship this year. And I know a lot of people probably agree and disagree with me. It could definitely be a 50-50 vote. But look, he said something, he's got a reaction to it, and he's a happy man this week. And yeah, he's definitely created another storm.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no, absolutely. I suppose before finishing up, in regards to Mayo, like next year, can they bounce back in the next couple of years? I know it's the never-ending cycle, but it is one of them things where you're kind of looking at it. And for myself personally, it'd be very easy right now to kind of dismiss Mayo and write them off. But like, you could see them getting to the All-Ireland final next year, like at the same time, because they do seem to have that knack. But then again, you know, they probably lose it. Like, it's just such a, I don't know, like my head's kind of blown by the whole situation, to be honest.
100%, Aaron, 100%. Like, look, to get to a final next year, we know the journey that the team needs to go on, and you can already probably see them get to the latter ends of the thing next year. But look, I keep saying it, how many times do you want to get to something and not get over the line? It staggers belief really at this stage, and I really do feel there's going to be huge response in Dublin next year. They're playing for the clubs at the minute. They're flying, apparently. Tyrone's going to be thereabouts again next year. Kerry will have a serious point again to prove next year. You have the likes of even Ulster there. You have you know, Monaghan coming up the ranks again, Armagh, Derry. You have a lot of good teams coming again. So maybe it's their time, Aaron. Maybe, as I keep saying, it's another rethink now in Mayo, possibly new management team, get a couple of players in, a couple of retirements. So it's so hard to know for next year with Mayo, like, because, you know, that they'll be hurt from that saddle once again. They'll be licking the wounds once again. And I don't know really what to foresee for Mayo football now for the next couple of years, because I think, again, it was a serious chance to start Aaron. Let's not shy away from that. We couldn't call the game at all, and it turned out to be a comfortable win for Tyrone. So it's so hard to know really where they are at. I think it's a fresh face probably needed. I think now if I was James Horan, I probably would step aside, because I think he's probably, I know he's blooded a lot of players in. I know he's seen a lot of change. He's done well, but I think he's had his probably fill at this stage, because you can only get your heart broken so much there, you know.
Yeah, no, it is a fair point. Like, and it will be interesting definitely to see what happens with Mayo, and I suppose for Tyrone, like, probably two teams probably going in opposite directions. Many people would feel now over the next couple of years.
As a dub, did you enjoy seeing Mayo get bet after them beating you?
Do you know? Yeah. Do you know, before the game started, there definitely was. I did want Mayo to win, but I'm not going to lie. At the same time, there was a bit of, I don't know, like, I still kind of have that I've tried to kind of make myself neutral as possible when I do this podcast, because I don't want people thinking that I'm too fully in the Dublin zone, like a lot of Dublin fans are, to be fair, because I have seen I'm in a lot of Dublin GAA fan groups, let's say, and I've seen a lot of the memes and the different things going around, like, so. But there was still that part of me that did somewhat enjoy it, and unfortunately I can't really help that. Like, that's the Dublin fan that's in me. But like, there is still a strong part of me that does like feel bad. Like, I don't know. Like, I used to feel bad for the fans, but at the same time, like, I feel like they just kind of set themselves up for this in some ways, like, because you were seeing kind of in the build up, like I seen one post, and I don't know if it was real or not, but it was literally saying like, congratulations Mayo, All Ireland champions. It was literally outside a pub somewhere in Ballina apparently, and I'm just thinking like come on, do you know what I mean? Like, even Dublin, like in 2011 when we had that 16-year drought, there was none of that going on. Do you know what I mean? Like, because
Yeah, I suppose the big thing is, and like I think like it's probably a good point that Daniel Gouldy made on my podcast there a few weeks ago. I think it was a couple of days after Mayo bet Dublin, and Daniel, like, obviously an All-Ireland winner and All-Star, he knows the crack. And he was even saying, like, at the time I thought, oh Jesus, Daniel, they probably just lived in the moment having the crack. But he was saying Mayo should have just got off the pitch against after with bet Dublin and just got into the dressing room and just focus for the All-Ireland final. But the more I think about Daniel's point, the more it actually makes sense, Aaron, because they probably should have just got into the dressing room. I know. It was a huge mental block for Mayo beating Dublin, but it was an All-Ireland semi-final, Aaron. There wasn't a cup handed out after that game. I think they probably should have just filmed their bit of celebrations for 5 or 10 minutes and get into that dressing room. They must have been on the pitch for about, I don't know, half an hour after the game. So, everything is so important. And obviously, Danny Gouldy, he's won an All-Ireland. Like, it was a great point that he made. But everything's so important leading up to an All-Ireland final. What to do after semi-final, what to do the weeks leading up to that game. I know Mayo obviously got the media day out of it way before the final, everything that went with it. But I really do think the more I think about Danny's point, they probably should have just got off the pitch when the bet used in that semi-final, because there wasn't a Sam Maguire handed out after that game, Aaron.
Yeah, no, like, it is a fair point. Like to be fair, like, I can't really begrudge them too much for the celebrations. I think after all the defeats and all the hurt, I don't really take anything away from them there. I suppose it does depend really what happened, quickly after that game. Like, was there a celebration that night? Obviously none of us have an insight into the Mayo camp, or where they, fair enough, you're allowed to go out for a drink and all the rest, but you would wonder, like, was it like how far were the celebrations? Because that would be the interesting thing. And I know, like, obviously on the Tackle and Sport podcast, Daniel Hussey and ourselves are kind of saying that 4-week layoff might have helped them, but I think in some ways, I think it probably went against them, because it was so much time to, it was almost like they had too much time to set, like they could afford themselves celebrating the Dublin victory because they had all this time. And then also they almost had too much time to think about the Tyrone game, whereas Tyrone, it was just 2 weeks, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, exactly. But like, I think it actually might even be the supporters' effect that they have in the team. If you were saying there was a sign like outside the pub saying, All Ireland champions, well done to Mayo. Like, I know obviously, like, I'll beat the cabin drum for a second, but I think we were like in an under-21 All Ireland final back in 2011. I think there was a sign up on the way to Croker, or I think near Cavan or something, like, well done All Ireland champions. So I think for people that jump ahead of them themselves, obviously, like, for supporters to kind of be putting up them signs and getting ahead of themselves, it's ridiculous. It kind of brings a false hope to the Mayo footballers. And sometimes I think fans have a massive, obviously, say on the team. And I think the Mayo fans, I think they really believed in the hype. They got ahead of themselves. And if you're saying that sign was above the pub, I think that nearly sums the whole thing up. So it's a tough pill to swallow for them. It really is.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Definitely probably the toughest defeat, I'd imagine, anyways, over the past 70 years, I suppose. Well, look, listen, John.
You're loving it.
I'm secretly loving to hear behind the camera, smiling and going out celebrating and all. I'm not gonna lie, like, when the final whistle blew, I don't know what it was, but maybe because I was in London going out having drinks, I was kind of enjoying, like, the whole Tyrone kind of element, kind of side of things, but. Sure.
You look like you enjoyed Saturday night, Aaron, judge me Instagram.
yeah. Oh, no,
surprised you're fit to do this today.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie now. I'm fairly tired and I'm kind of hanging, to be honest. I had a 10-hour sleep last night, so I'm okay. But in terms of the days before, I feel like they're all starting to kind of catch up with me now.
Jesus, yeah, no, fair play on a Monday as well. Jesus, yeah, we've another podcast to do in an hour, so I don't know, you may get a bit of kip after us.
yeah, no, absolutely. It'll probably be food and a shower and maybe a half an hour nap or something or something like that anyways. But look, listen, John, cheers anyway for coming on. Appreciate your time. I'll link down your podcast down below as always.
Aaron, you're an absolute gentleman. Thanks very much.